Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast with Angie and Tanya, where we hope to inspire you to dream big and push past your fear, empower you to take charge of your own life, and challenge you to be the most authentic self you can be. Welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Angie Mullings.
And I'm Tanya Murfin.
Well, we have some exciting things to talk about today, don't we?
This is kind of just an episode to get caught up on Angie and Tanya's life. As we know it.
Yeah. So you had a major event.
I did. So my daughter got married, Lakin, my eldest daughter, with the one with two babies. And it was an amazing day.
Yeah.
It was a joyous, amazing day. And I think we all, those of us that were involved in it, and even the invitees have told me how much they enjoyed it, how pretty it was, how well it flowed. So I'm still elated, I think.
Good. Yeah, that's really
from the a good
event
feeling. Itself.
You know, I talked to a lot of mothers of the bride or somebody who is directly involved in planning, and sometimes it's just such a headache, and it's more of a, oh, thank God that is over, versus, you know, you're still elated about the whole day.
Yeah. And I would say the planning itself, so Lakin kind of took the reins on that, and I wanted to kind of hang back and let her do her thing, because I can be very controlling. I don't know if you know that part of me, Angie.
Are you a high D, type A?
Maybe. But so, you know, from the beginning, I just let her go and let her contact me about questions. And, you know, I've made a decision about this. What do you think about that? And so I think that out of the gate, that helped us get along for the most part throughout the whole process. And I wasn't, you know, I didn't even make a list for myself until the last 4 weeks.
Wow.
Of stuff that I knew I needed to take or knew I needed to do leading up to it, you know. So, yeah, that's kind of impressive in itself, because I'm a list maker.
Oh, yeah. I know this about you. Yeah.
As I sit here with a list, 2 lists. So, yeah, I think that was a huge benefit to us. I will say that one of the things that we were missing I was missing on direction, and Doreen, my counterpart, the groom's mother, was also missing, is that Lakin was a little wishy-washy about what color of dress we were supposed to wear. And, you know, she had picked her wedding colors long before she did anything. She knew what colors she wanted to have for the bridesmaids, for the groomsmen. And so we got down to like 2 months before, and it was still not clear. Doreen was hearing something different than what I was hearing. So finally, Doreen and I had to get together and say, okay, what have you been told? What have you been told? Compared stories. And then we had to just hit Lakin with, tell us what color. Because I had been given a dress to wear if it fit me and if I liked it from a friend of mine. And it was beautiful, and I loved it. It would have been perfect, but it was dark gray. And that was not going to go. It was not acceptable. And finally, I kept urging that, you know, that dress, because it was beautiful and it fit me like a glove, and which would have prevented me from having to go out and do the search. So finally, when it was clear to both of us that you need to wear a champagne color, then the hunt for the champagne dress ended up, both of us were on it, and we would send screenshot pictures every night, and we were both shopping every night online, and I mowed down all the shops locally, couldn't find anything I wanted, and finally ordered one on Amazon, and it was perfect. If you can believe that.
You never know, right?
Yeah.
You just never know.
So just know up front, mamas, that what color you're expected to wear, and just go with it. I fought it for a while just because I loved this dress, but it wasn't about me. I finally just had to relent Wasn't about me. It was about her.
And that's exactly a point I was going to make. That a lot of times I think some of this friction between mother and daughter is obviously the mother wants their daughter to have the perfect day and the perfect wedding, and they somehow end up making it about them when
Agree.
it's just not.
Yeah, I agree.
So you guys, where was it? What was the venue?
It was Industrial Grove, which is in Fairgrove,
Okay.
and it's been open for a couple of years now.
Okay.
So not very old. It's fairly new still.
Right. And I know, I just talking to different brides, we've got all these, and we're in real estate, so we see them all the time. We've got all these venues that are available
yeah.
now. Lots of barns, renovated barns, industrial sites,
Yep.
just everything you can imagine. But still, I hear that it's tough to get a date.
Yeah, it is. That was one of that's the first thing you do, right? You have to secure, when are we going to get married? And let's start touring venues. And they had planned to get married once before, a couple of years earlier. And so we had already been through that leg of it.
Okay.
And so that part was easier. And she ended up having it on a Friday instead of a Saturday because Saturdays were booked in October.
Okay.
So we were forced to have it on a Friday. And honestly, I would recommend looking into that. I know a lot of people have out-of-town guests, but so did we on the Kelly side, and they were able to get here by Friday, or by Thursday, excuse me, and it worked out better for us because we actually got to go the night before for our actual rehearsal and decorate, whereas a lot of brides that can get their weddings on Saturday, they actually end up having to decorate on Saturday too.
Oh, wow.
So that would have added a whole nother level of stress
sure.
to our event.
Sure.
So it turned out nice because of that. And then you've got
all weekend.
You've got all weekend long.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to promote is I was imagining that this day would be crazy, and
sure.
and I've heard other mamas say, I wish I had done this and I wish I'd thought about this. And one of those things from one of my friends was that she wished she had had more time with each guest and had actually been able to talk to each guest.
Yeah.
So it's an overwhelming blur of events anyway. And it just keeps chugging along that night after the ceremony. We planned a luncheon the day after. So Lakin and Caleb aren't going on their honeymoon until a few weeks after the wedding anyway.
Okay.
So we all got together for a 1:00 lunch the day after. And by we all, I mean family and then a maid of honor and groomsmen also came. And so it was just family. And we all... That was one of the best things we did. We all laughed and retold what we saw through our eyes, and everybody saw something different from the same story. It was so fun to compare stories, and for Lakin and Caleb to hear it from our eyes because they're in their own little bubble.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was fun. I would recommend that if at all possible.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that in Friday night weddings. I was talking to a photographer who said that she was doing a photo shoot for a wedding on a Monday. I mean, people are choosing whatever night because even though we have all these venues, they're still booked, especially in certain months of the year.
sure.
I'm sure it matters what time of year you're getting married, but
sure.
but you got to go with whatever you got to go with, right?
do.
It might be a Monday, a Tuesday, and
Yep.
and
And it's a lot cheaper if you're not on the
Yes.
weekend.
Yeah.
Budget
Yeah.
also has a lot to do
Sure.
with that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were lucky we got a little bit cheaper rate on a Friday than we did a Saturday.
Okay.
So that's
Good
beneficial.
to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yep.
So did you guys hire a wedding planner?
We did, and it actually ended up being one of Lakin's friends. So Sarah has, I guess, had interest in being a wedding coordinator, and she had been involved the first time around when Lakin was starting to plan a wedding, and it just ended up that she became very organized in what she planned on doing for Lakin. And she doesn't do it professionally, but she has done a few for friends on the side.
Gotcha.
And she did a fabulous job. I honestly would highly recommend that. And I have also heard that real wedding coordinators who do this for a living are very expensive, and their services are very small. Now, that might not be right for all you wedding coordinators out there. I don't know. I didn't research it, but I have heard that from other mothers of the bride, that it was too expensive. They couldn't afford one because it was so costly.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say, look into that and make sure that maybe you do know somebody that, has done this before. They don't do it professionally, but they do it on the side. Sarah made sure that all of our timelines were intact and that everything flowed as it should. And then to help out with that, the DJ we hired was superb, and he managed the entire evening from start to finish, from even the start of the wedding. He was interjecting, everybody needs to go ahead and find their seats. The ceremony's going to start soon. And he did such a great job without his direction of, okay, here's what's going to happen next. Get prepared in 30 minutes. There's going to be a champagne toast after everybody's sat for dinner, and then they're going to cut the cake. And I mean, you knew exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
So that's worth every dime.
So he was sort of like an MC.
He absolutely emceed the whole event.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He was fantastic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So another little tip there. Yes. Thank you. And some of my other little tips to moms out there, or you may have someone else helping you with this. You may be coordinating it with your best friend and your maid of honor. Who knows? Or maybe with the groom. Talk to other moms. So I was lucky that a good friend of mine, Chantel, her daughter had gotten married there a month or two before Lakin's wedding, and we actually attended it.
Gotcha.
So we got to kind of see how it flowed, and Lakin, Olivia had an outdoor wedding, Lakin's was inside. So we knew that there would be some major differences, but Chantel gave me a list of, do this, make sure you don't forget this, do this, do this, do this. And that really helped me take notes about a month out at that 4-week margin, so that I had a list of stuff that I didn't even know I needed to do, right? Or buy or bring.
Right.
One of those tips was make sure you're planning on food for the day of to feed the bridal party, because the bridal party is there all day.
Yeah.
Groomsmen showed up after lunch, but I still provided breakfast and lunch for everybody, had snacks there throughout the day, had drinks there throughout the day, because you show up to these venues and they're not equipped for that.
Right.
You've got to remember to bring all of that.
Right.
And here we are in Fair Grove, so that's not a easy trip back into town to think about feeding 30 people,
Right.
So,
Yeah.
let's see, what are some of my other tips for you? Oh, I was just going to say that, the morning of, it was all of us ladies there, and we had such a nice morning with mimosas and had breakfast, starting to get makeup and hair done, and almost too relaxed. So then when it was go time, I don't have my makeup done. I'm not done, and I'm in some of the first pictures. So Tanya was over lollygagging around. And I should have sat down earlier on and said, no, I need to get finished before all the bridesmaids, because putting her dress on were the first pictures.
Okay.
So I have to be ready.
Yes,
The bridesmaids can still be getting ready. So I had to throw my dress on, and I felt very rushed there
Gotcha.
at the end of, our long drawn out morning, which was, just adding additional stress. It didn't need to be there. I could have
Right.
sat in that chair hours earlier.
Right.
So that's another little tip I would give. Another tip I would give, a big tip, is don't bring an infant and a toddler and not have childcare provided. So we talked about it numerous times, and I suggested it numerous times. And unfortunately, this would be the case for most people. Everybody we know and that the kids know, the little girls know, were at the wedding.
Yeah.
So thinking about hiring somebody that the girls didn't know, or maybe didn't know very well, Lakin just wasn't having it.
Yeah.
And Rylan is 6 months old, and the noise, so our awesome DJ, he's loud. and she could not bear the noise. She was even shaking at one point. She was so upset, and she cried most of the evening. And our friend Whitney was on babysitting duty, and another friend, Alicia, and that just did not turn out well. That was hard, and we ended up having to send them out earlier than what we had planned, and even that was at 9:00. And Doreen said, "We got to get these kids out of here."
Yeah.
Both of them were squalling at that point, and it was just they had had enough, and it was bad. And so Doreen and I weren't having fun anymore because we were too worried about the kids, the babies, and so she took them out, took them home. So don't think you can bring your kids to a wedding and they needed to be taken out. They needed to be there for important parts, and then they needed to go home with someone. So that's an important tip I would give.
You know, I hear arguments all the time. You know, this it's funny. I'll listen to a radio show and they have, send us your questions. We'll answer anything.
Yeah.
And I noticed that several of them have to do with invitations to weddings. They and most of the time it is somebody getting ruffled over we can't bring our kids to the wedding.
Yes. Yep.
But there are a lot of people doing that, saying, this is our day,
Yeah.
and obviously it wouldn't have worked in this case because it was their own children.
Right.
But
Exactly.
yeah, so it's a little different. But if you it's becoming more commonplace to say, and do the kids really enjoy it?
Right.
Especially if they're little toddlers
No.
and below. They're not really enjoying that, and they don't like to get dressed up anyway.
Agree.
And so I don't know why you would fight to bring your kids
Agree.
if somebody says, if the wedding party says we're not having kids.
Agree.
But it seems to be a point of dispute.
Yes.
So in wedding planning these days.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a good point. I would agree with that. I've heard that as well. And yeah, if your children aren't going to be in it, then they probably don't need to be there.
Right.
Yeah, I would
Right.
agree with that.
Yeah.
And we were lucky. There were some other kids there, but they were all well behaved, and so we didn't have that issue. And both of the little girls walked down the aisle prior to their mama coming down
precious.
with their daddy. It was
Yeah.
precious,
Precious.
and they both performed very well.
They made
were
it
on
through
their
that.
best behavior. Yes. So yeah, that's a big tip. And my other tip would be make sure you plan a cleanup crew.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a great story before we'll move on to what's up in your life, Angie. And I'm going to try to bullet point this. My friends would say, you don't bullet point, Tanya. You cannot tell a quick story. Because I feel that to get the true feelings and emotions
I'm 100%
across
with you. Yeah.
You've really got to tell the nuggets of the story.
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a quick version. So cleanup crew, I knew we had to clean up. Lakin knew we had to clean up. We told Randy, who is Lakin's dad, we had to clean up. So we three knew Randy and I would be staying behind to clean up. I guess we never had that conversation with Doreen and Robert, the groom's parents. And so it wasn't until we were declaring she had to take the babies home that we had to stay and clean up, and Robert didn't know that. And so so that hit me like, oh my gosh, we didn't plan the cleanup crew. So there were about 6 or 8 of us left to clean up, and Lakin and Caleb walked out the door at 9:45 to get in the limo, and we had to be out of there at 11. And you have to take out everything you brought in. And so we are starting to clean up. We're emptying, all the vases and the flowers that we've brought. We're putting those back in boxes, and we're getting all of it together, like gathered on a table, so that then we can put it in boxes. And we're in the midst of that, and I've got my car out there already pulled up. Robert has pulled his car out there to fill it up. Well, Randy says, where's all this going to go? Because we're taking trips out to the cars to load up. And we had to wait until the limo left because he was in our way.
Gotcha.
So he peels out, a little after 9:45, and we're starting to unload this event space. And we know we're on limited time. And so Randy says, okay, I'll go get mine and Alicia's car, his girlfriend's car. So Alicia's car, she pulls it around, it's out there, and Randy goes out to get his car. And he comes back in, and now it's probably a little after 10, and we were headstrong into, making these trips back and forth to the cars.
Right.
And he comes back in and he says, my car's gone. And Alicia and I just look at him and pause, and we're like, what do you mean? Well, my car's not out there. And she says, well, ask Robert, because Robert was moving cars prior to the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went and asked Robert, and Robert said, no, I didn't ever move your car. And we're all in a stupor, right? We've had a very long day.
Right.
We're in a post-wedding fog because we know we've got to get all of this stuff out of this space in an hour. And so he just kind of stands there, and he carries some more boxes to the car, still in a stupor, and we're just moving. We're just moving. So we tell him, go back out there and look again, and because you just missed it. Maybe somebody else
too many
moved
cars
it.
left at this point.
Well, exactly.
Right?
There's
Yeah.
like 6 or 8 of us left.
Yeah.
So, and the cleanup crew from the event space, they're actually there too.
Okay.
So he goes back out, he disappears again, and he comes back, and he declares again in not so nice language, my car is not out there. My car is missing. So we stop again, and we look at him again in our wedding fog, and we're like, how can your car be missing? We're in Fairgrove, Missouri. Probably not known for car thieves and
Right.
cars being stolen from weddings. How can your car be missing? Nobody else has complained about that. Why you? And so, again, we're in a stupor, and Robert chimes in and is like, how can your car be missing? Like, are you sure? And he's like, I have walked the whole parking lot. I've walked behind the building. I've walked over to that business over there. I have walked everywhere, and my car is missing. So we all, again, are just kind of looking at each other. I'm like, well, do we make a police report? What do we even do? Like, what is there to do? The wedding owner, or the wedding venue owner, is standing there. And I said, Hannah, what do we do? Like, we're missing a car. And she said, she's kind of looked at us and then said, well, I have cameras. We could go look at the cameras. So a friend, Tanner, was still down in the bride's suite. And so he volunteers and says, I'll look through them, because she said it could take a while.
Yeah.
So he's down there looking through them in this closet. And I'm down there because the bridal suite exploded with all kinds of clothes and crap left
sure.
behind.
Yeah.
That now I'm down there gathering
up.
stuff, cleaning up. And he comes out and he goes, I see the thief. I know who stole the car. It's a lady with short gray hair. Looks like a short bob. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know anybody with a short gray bob. Well, Gianna is walking into the bridal suite, who is Caleb's sister.
Okay.
And I said, Gianna, go in there and look at the film. We know who stole the car. It's a lady with short gray hair. And so Gianna pops in there, and they're looking, and they're looking, and they're looking, and she pops out and goes, oh my God, my aunt stole Randy's car. So she runs out and tells her dad, and tells him who stole the car, and tells Randy who stole the car, that we found the car thief. Well, Robert had given, when Doreen left with the babies, Aunt so-and-so was also getting ready to leave to go back with Doreen.
Okay.
And there were 2 Acuras in the parking lot, both with their keys in the car.
Oh.
So Gianna's car is the one that was supposed to be taken back to Doreen's house, so she wasn't left with it at the end of the night. And instead, Randy's Acura was taken to Doreen's house. So we figured out when she went to confirm, Gianna's car is still in the parking lot, Randy's is not.
Gotcha.
So
Oh my goodness.
in the wedding fog, and the wedding fog is a real thing. The next day I felt like I was really hungover, and I really never drank all that much because I was dizzy and I just was out of sorts. Like I had to actually get up and work on a contract the next morning, and I was so dazed. And so that would be another tip that I would give mamas and daddies that are going through marrying their kids is the wedding fog is a real thing.
Yeah.
And you will suffer for a few days from it. So
Okay.
there's my funny
Wow.
story. So that will forever go down.
Oh,
as
I'm surprised he didn't mistake the aunt's car for his. Did he say there's a car out there like mine?
No, because he was just looking for his. His is white. Gianna's is black.
Oh, they're not even.
No,
What?
and yes. So I guess the color of the car was never given. And if it were, she didn't hear it. She just said
Gotcha.
Acura, keys in the car. Well, you get in cars these days and you push start.
Yeah, I know.
Off you go.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, that is that's
It's good.
funny. Yeah, that's a good
it'd be a
story.
great memory, but
Absolutely.
yes. But what a joy it was to experience the wedding as mother of the bride. I'm still elated from it, as I
Yeah.
said, and
Yeah.
it was a wonderful day. It was the perfect day, and the bride and groom think it was the perfect day.
That's all
So
that
no matter what
matters.
happened behind the scenes, they never knew about it, and
Yeah.
don't tell them because they don't need to know. That'd be my other suggestion. Until the next day when
There
you're
you
sharing
go.
stories. Yeah.
That's funny.
So
That's great.
anyway, so let's move on to you, Angie. We are in a season of change for both of us. We've started a podcast this year, and we shared with one another as we started the podcast kind of some of our future goals and some of the ways we saw ourselves growing into our next selves.
Right.
So you had something happen last weekend.
Yeah.
You got to be a keynote speaker at a conference.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's very exciting. It is, like you said, it's a goal that I've had. I've been working with a speech coach for a couple of years, but hadn't really put myself out there much, and then made the mistake or the good fortune to mention it to a friend of mine who manages a website that for an association, a national association. And she said, we're always looking for speakers. Put your name out there. And she kept on me and she kept on me. You need people like that in your life who just, if you say something, because if I tell you I'm going to do something, it's going to get done.
Right.
Now, it may not get done in the first 6 months or year. It just, because life is busy and we have businesses to run and we have things to do and distractions.
Yes.
And so, but she kept after me. And when it was time for them to publish their list of speakers, she reached out to me again. I was like, okay, it's now or never. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to put myself out there.
Yeah.
And so I immediately got a call and asked to be a keynote for this conference, and they paid my way out. I went out to Maryland. They paid my way out. They paid all my expenses. They paid my speaker fee. And, it's funny. I think that call came in, I'm going to say it was April or May-ish when I got the call. I thought, I got plenty of time to plan,
Yeah.
And while I had an outline of my speech, it wasn't thoroughly vetted, and I hadn't made I was still tweaking it on, let's see, I gave the speech on Saturday. I was still tweaking it a little bit on Friday night. Just things would come to me. And so it was great. It was, I gave myself a B+, and I feel like there's always room, no matter what you do, there's room for growth and improvement. And I feel like the best leaders are lifetime learners. They always are seeking ways to be better. And so, I got in the Uber after my speech, and I just immediately was going in to mode of, what could I have done better? How do I feel like I came across? And that's when I came up with the B+ rating. I was like, well, I checked this box and I checked this box. I didn't hit my final point because I was a little rushed because they were behind and I had a scheduled flight that I needed to be at the airport. And so I had someone at the back of the room flagging me, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And so my last point was a really good one, and I didn't get to hit it. And it was disappointing. But anyway.
So is that the only reason you would give yourself a B+? Because this is you kind of starting the fire, right?
Right.
So your first keynote, although you say you weren't prepared, I know you to be very prepared. But we question ourselves.
Sure.
Right? So
Sure.
I can see you starting to think, oh, well, maybe I should reinforce this point, or maybe I should word
Right.
that differently, or whatever it was.
Right.
But why the B plus?
The B plus, because I missed that last point.
Yes.
The other part was, so each group that you go to is different, right? Whatever, if you're going to speak, or let's say, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're going to be a facilitator of a small group, or you're going to do a keynote, or you're going to whatever the case may be, if you are given a task to do to help a group of people, you want to try to connect with those people, right? And we're all different. And I feel like, even though I did research in advance, I tried to find out who was going to be in the audience. What demographic was I going to be speaking to?
Right,
That
yeah.
kind of thing. I did some sort of high level questioning about my audience, but I probably should have done more. I probably
Okay.
and some of this is based on, I asked for feedback, because I'm always going to ask for
Yes.
feedback, and I want honest feedback when we do, just like you and I do in this podcast. We've asked for feedback on how we
Yes.
could be better, and you get better just by doing, right?
Yes,
I'll
for
get
sure.
better as a speaker just by in practice alone.
Yeah.
But I asked for feedback, and the only feedback that I got was something like, "We wish you would have talked more about our field." So, but she made some really good points. So
Okay.
while I was already thinking I should have learned a little bit more about my audience, that's what I took away from
Okay.
that
Yep.
feedback, was
Yep.
that, but on the other side of that, my initial thought was, but I don't know anything about
Right.
that field. I can do a little studying.
Right.
And you and I have been to lots of conferences. They've all been real estate conferences, at least
Right.
for me. And so I assumed that when I'm going to go talk to an association, the structure is going to be very much the same.
Yeah.
And they say you should never assume.
Right.
And I just shouldn't have assumed that. I
Right.
knew that there were some differences. And I did sit in on a session or two before my speech.
Got it.
So I was able to, in my speech, be a little bit flexible. I referenced a couple of things that were said in the sessions ahead of me. So maybe I just should have done more of that. I don't know, but I am, and I did reach out to Lori, and I told her what the feedback was. So she and I will discuss,
Yeah.
maybe different ways I can open that to make sure, because here's the thing, my speech is on leadership.
Okay.
And leadership is universal. It doesn't matter whether you're leading a church group or a real estate office or an organization.
Yep.
The principles are still the same.
Yep.
So maybe my first point should have been, a lot of my lessons have been learned in real estate and the real estate association. But hopefully you will find a message throughout this that you can apply to your own situation.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in your leadership journey, because again, the principles, they don't change. They're
Right.
the same.
Yeah.
And so,
Agree with that.
yeah. So anyway, it was that's why I gave myself, that was a really
Okay.
long answer to why
That
I gave
was.
myself a B plus.
But it was a very good answer, and you gave some examples in there of why you gave yourself that grade. And I think we are our harshest critics, obviously. But also, when you're doing something for the first time, you really don't know what to expect.
Right.
So you've got to give yourself some grace after the fact anyway, to be able to build for the next speech, and you'll be more prepared possibly with
Right.
whoever you're speaking to,
Right.
to wrangle their career, their whatever their, I guess, whatever they're there for, possibly,
Right.
or the career field, to be able to insert examples of that into your speech. And, and you talking just a minute ago, you and I go to these national conferences, and was it Venus Williams that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have a celebrity come in and give a speech, and she really didn't give a speech. It was just it was a Q&A more
Right,
so.
right.
But we want to know how she got to where she's at. We want to
Right.
know what life skills it took. We want to know what leadership skills it took.
Right.
So I would think that there no matter what field you come from, and no matter what field you are speaking to, the idea of leadership, we all are in those shoes every single day, whether we acknowledge it or not.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, so I would think that, for the future, you're able to,
Yeah.
I don't know, just improve, obviously.
Absolutely. Like I said, every opportunity is an opportunity to grow. And something that struck me that morning, Tanya, that I want to be sure and share, because you and I have talked about John Maxwell and his leadership lessons. And very recently, we both listened to the one of the podcasts, and he talked about the inside out leader. And I was fortunate enough, we were right on the beach, and I was a little nervous, but not overly nervous. I got up that morning and I went and sat on the beach and I watched the sunrise, and then I took a little stroll down the beach, and that lesson was coming back in my head, inside out leader. I'm going to go and I'm going to give them the best I can. I am not there for me.
Right.
I am there in service to them.
Right.
I want the audience to take something away.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like whether you go and listen to a speaker at a national conference or within your own organization, if you take away one thing,
Absolutely.
then I feel like, especially if you're a seasoned leader,
Yes.
and you take away one thing, I feel like that's a win.
That's a win.
And so I really, that inside out leader, meaning that you're leading on the inside first, and then you lead on the outside. It leads to a better you on the outside is basically what that message is.
Right.
And I think if I had a message that I would want our audience to hear, is that whatever your fear is, whether it's public speaking or it's whatever, just take that first step.
Yeah.
And then just know and accept that it's probably not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But as long as you learn and grow, and you may find out that whatever that is, that you just needed to do it that one time because you needed to prove that you could do it. Maybe it's not something you want to do lifelong, but it's certainly, I would encourage you not to let fear stand in your way, and just go do it, and do it to the best of your ability, and learn and grow from it.
Well, I applaud you for putting your name out there when you hesitated to, because you can't ever get on a speaking tour if you don't put your name out there to begin
Right.
with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I applaud you, and I'm proud of you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I think a B+ is really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So we also, by the time this episode airs, we will have had a small event to get some of our avid listeners together to kind of celebrate the podcast,
Yeah.
because believe it or not, we're in November and we are heading into the holidays
Yes.
quickly.
Yeah.
So
And we're like 20, 28, 29 episodes
Yeah.
in. And we really, something that we want to do on a regular basis is have an event or two, maybe a year. We're still working on that, but it is a life experience for us that we're starting to add on to, not just offer the podcast, but
Right.
have some other offerings. And we're talking about that. And in a future episode, you're going to hear about what our goals are for 2024, and they're going to be big. So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely.
But, if you are looking to be part of a community and you want to be invited to the next event that we have, be sure and stay tuned. And we'll be putting those offers out there real soon.
yeah, we will. So that's a wrap on
Yeah.
the life update, Angie.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks again to Gershman Mortgage. We appreciate being able to record in this awesome studio.
We do. And we will catch you next time. Thanks
ya.
for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Simply Authentic podcast. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Be sure to listen to us on your favorite podcasting app.